Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice 9.11. Yeah, and it's Japan. Okay. Yes, I get tired of saying it. I'm not getting tired of playing, just getting tired of saying that. Okay, I went in and modded the event files here. We can now declare war on Tibet and Xinjiang. Probably butchering it, but what I did, just to explain, I removed the conditions of existing the nationalist China at Nanjing requirement. I removed that, and that it be a puppet of Japan. Meaning it could exist and not be a puppet of Japan, and they wouldn't fire. I removed that, and immediately, and then loaded up, Tibet was able to be declared war on from this time date save. I've made a test save here and whatnot, but I couldn't declare war on Xinjiang. So I went and looked at it, and for both of them there's an adjacency to being either adjacent to Japan or the reorganized nationalist China. So I removed the needing to be adjacent to the nationalist China and added in that the Ma clique, as I'm calling them, because they were the Ma group. I don't know exactly what the rest stand for. May just mean click, but whatever. May have some other meaning there, but that's the key element to this. I made it required that the Ma be a puppet of Japan, and that Ma or Japan have adjacent territory. So it would have worked just removing the thing if I'd taken Tibet, and then that would put me adjacent. But I don't know that I'm going to go to war with Tibet, but I am planning on going to war up here first. So that that's all I've done. No other changes, no other modifications, no stuff that I think is okay. We got just checking to see how many provinces we can attack to and from. Okay, so it's just these two here, I guess. Okay, so so as to not give me any particular, oh, I guess that would have been okay. Yeah, that probably would have been better. Any special bonuses or anything, because I don't see that having these, not having formed nationalist China is somehow limiting attacks on either one of these. I don't see the logic of that, and I do see the logic of adjacency, but having if nationalist China as a puppet adjacency was thought to be good enough, why not this clique as a puppet? Wouldn't be adjacency be good enough in that case? So yeah, so that's all I've done. That is all I have done to alter the situation from what you have to play, and it's really easy. I guess I could post it if you want, but yeah, it won't. You won't be getting the event to fire unless you've got, well, somehow if you've battled your way out here and not had nationalist China surrender, you can get the adjacency thing that way. But otherwise it's more or less the same conditions. And looking at some of the code, it could be coded but the way I did it, to add, because it was easier to remove these elements of the original and stick in, just change the country names, because there's an or statement in there, and I don't know if or can be 3, this or that or that. Not sure. I am not a good coder when it comes to this stuff, and yes, I've coded up I think one of the best mods out there, but it's all monkey see monkey do. I find an event like that and go, okay, well, I want Germany to be able to do it, but only if they control a border section on Iran, to be able to declare war on Iran. I want them to have to control that stuff. So I just find like an example of having to control the borders, or having an allied puppet type thing control a border, joint border, and then I might throw, now you're gonna have an event to go after Iran, as opposed to going through in a normal method of gameplay, which of course you can still do. As in declaring war on people. Okay, mountain unit training, very good. That is here. We're gonna keep that one going. And nav ground crew, I think, yeah. Let's move it over to TAC pilot. Okay, the Duke of York is launched and the Howe is launched. And I will also say it is, and these events don't show up if you're AI, that I was describing, so you have to be not an AI. Basically, they don't want to have Japan, because Japan's AI would go, oh, we can do this, sure, click, boom, without any thought as to the consequences, good or bad. And so that, let's move that down to there. Yeah, we'll take that. What did that give us? Let's go down here. Just a veteran, okay, not an elite. Now I have also off camera here, so we've got this unit commanded by a mountaineer, probably a fictional guy, but an elite mountain division here with armored cars. They get through some of the mountain rough terrain better, and some or the jungle. I checked, I forget which right now, but when I set up this unit, I forget whether it's both or one, mountain or jungle. I think maybe jungle, better than cavalry does as a recon unit. So I have that. These are sort of set up for the Burma theater, where you got mountains, you got jungles, and a few other things. So you have mountain infantry, specialized light infantry, which are good in the jungles, but okay in some of the other terrains, and pack artillery, which is weaker than regular, but better in mountain and jungles for movement particularly. So veteran division HQ there, another one just the same, commanded by a ranger and mountaineer. We have an elite, maybe my only, but we'll see. It's not an elite armor division. As you can see, the semi-motorized infantry, at least currently, and I don't know. Okay, and now we're going here, and even modified to go into at least that terrain. Let's see if we go into this terrain. It's actually moving faster than the armor going into the hills. So the fully motorized would be even faster. So I thought that was not so. It's a balance issue. It's not just an absolute issue once you get it modified for different terrain types because of the trucks. influence the number of units, but and that also, if you notice, it basically has the elite light infantry, which wasn't going to be too fast either, and I decided to add those once once I decided to do that. What I'm planning on doing is, once I get another infantry or another brigade slot to this elite division, because you notice we have a battle commander here for headquarters, I'm going to add motorized support unit to it, I think, or an armored support unit once I get one more slot. So it's going to really turn out to be a fairly elite unit, and not, I mean, it has the specialized light infantry, which helps in jungles and other places, so we can move it down to India. That's sort of where I'm planning on fighting this unit, more or less, or it could be anywhere, but looking at India possibly. And yes, I have been advised, you know, land campaign or naval campaign, got to pick. Well, no matter what we do, we're going to have a Burma campaign, because we're going to have a shared. Isn't there a? Maybe they removed. I thought there was a shared. There was the Burma road. I don't know. Maybe that's gone now. But we're gonna because we're coming down here and we're either taking Thailand, or Thailand's going to become a puppet, or Axis member or something. Be in the war on our side at some point. So we're going to have a Burma campaign. Now, a Burma campaign can be find a good defensive line, you know, mountains, jungles, and hold. Absolutely. And that very well may be what that is, and not pushing into India. But if opportunity allows, and or we decide to like invade, you know, naval invasion, and you know, flank them out, because we've seen what happens when we come over here with Germany. If we decide to flank them out, we may be able to cut off and destroy their army here, having a good armored division there. Or if we're coming down to visit Tippett and other Australians, we very well might want at least one good or reasonably good armored division. And of course, if we do go after the Soviets, it will be useful to have. Now, I don't expect my medium armor to be as good as German medium armor, just because of the various techs, and we'll probably be behind some of that, but improve that. And just 2 elite light infantry divisions there, so that's created those. And I don't think any of them are going to get out here in time, though. These guys, if we go after Burma, maybe, I mean Tibet, may be very useful there, but I don't know that we will. Okay, we would like to sell some supplies to somebody. Chile, no, they hardly need any. Probably don't want to waste a. Hungary, I don't think we can, because we don't have, they don't have a port. Ireland, well, maybe they'll buy a supply. Okay, that will be good. No, does Latvia have the transport available? Yeah. We'll try Latvia. Poland there. There we go. Portugal. They certainly could use it. But like historically, they don't like us. Historically, Salazar hated the Japanese. That was also some of the reasoning for not wanting to go in the Axis. He also hated Hitler too. I mean, he hated Hitler with such a passion that he wrote an anti-Hitler book. These, I'm happy to sell to the Americans. I just expect them to embargo us at some point here. So I'm looking for people who might not embargo us, and if we can get in there. Okay, yes, we saw that last time. And I don't know what your experience is, because I played one game as Britain, one game as Italy. All the rest of my games were as Germany, as any, developed game. I don't know what's going to happen with Germany and the Spanish Republic in the game. I think I think they would have followed their puppet masters of the Soviet Union and go to war with Germany at that point. If it was, because I know there's a lot of propaganda, and it's the Spanish Republic, and it's, blah, 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 save democracy, blah, 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 blah. Well, there were a lot of murder squads going out that were from the left in Spain before the nationalist revolt. Okay. Does that justify the nationalist revolt? No, that's debatable. And these murder squads before the nationalist revolt and in the early stages after the nationalist revolt would go into, say, like a monastery and kill all the nuns, or that would be a nunnery, I guess, or the monastery and kill all the monks. We're not just talking about, the evil landlord who kicked off all the tenants because they didn't pay his outrageous rents. And they may, whether the landlord is evil or not, you could describe whether he justified being killed. We can do that. Now, did he have a murder squad that killed, one of his tenants who did something bad? Maybe, and maybe he does sort of deserve it. But that's not what I'm debating here. I'm debating, well, the church owned land, so we go kill all the monks. What? And so they were doing things like this. And so that's what pushes the Spanish Republic. Now, does this, or the nationalist faction, does the nationalist faction commit war crimes or crimes? Because, war crime can only happen during a war. The war's over, there's crimes committed after that, I will say. But, some of the cases were, is they, showed up, and sometimes, there's still blood evidence around, not maybe wet blood evidence, but blood evidence around that the people holding the building had butchered all of the monks. They come in, the nationalists come in and butcher all the people that are that they capture with capturing the building. Now, were all those involved in the crime? Were any of them involved in the crime directly, as in committing it, as opposed to simply being involved and being on that side? I don't know. But so some of these butcheries were very visceral and very reactions to what they saw as outrages. Doesn't mean they're right. Doesn't mean that, I'm justifying it. It's just fine that they did it. No, I'm explaining it. And so, yes, the nationalists did bad things. But I see the Republicans as they were acting before the revolt, during the revolt, and what I believed from my readings of how, and including from one sort of historical fiction book. Good historical fiction does good history within it, but then sort of puts a few fictional characters around to sort of tie everything together, sort of a viewpoint characters, and describing some of the stuff going on. And it was very much, and I've also got this from other sources, so I looked some of this up. The way the Soviets were doing is they were sending in the supplies and the new equipment into Spain. They then picked which units got the new equipment. So it would be units that weren't anarchist units, weren't the syndicalist units, that weren't the Trotskyite communist units, weren't the socialist units, weren't the sort of democratic type militia units. They were the Stalinist communist units. And they also, through various means, including assassinations, made sure that commanders of different areas were the ones that they wanted. Some of the means was, hey, well, you want the next shipment of tanks? Fire this guy and put this guy in charge, kind of thing. Some of it's just that. And then there's also Stalinist hit squads going around, and I'm not talking about Stalinist hit squads going around after nationalists. I'm talking Stalinist hit squads going around after prominent figureheads of their allies, because they wanted to get rid of the inspirational leaders that could oppose them. And so they were doing all that, and then they would have their puppet guys order the anarchist unit to charge and take that hill. And they come back and didn't take the hill. Well, you go take that hill again. Oh, no, we won't. Okay, decimate the unit, which, pick out 1 in 10 or whatever they would do. Shoot those. Okay, the rest of you guys, do you want to be shot or do you want to go take that hill? And so they used up the non-loyalist units to Stalin while keeping the loyal units to Stalin in reserve with all the good equipment, with all the ammo. And so you were either drafted in, because they definitely did round up drafts, both sides. But because of, particularly on the nationalist side, I think they were sort of worried about who they were drafting, were the people actually going to fight or not. They were looking for volunteers. And that goes on the Republican side as well, looking for volunteers to units. Who are you going to volunteer to? Someone you agree with who's an anarchist, who's fighting the fascist enemy or whatever you're calling them. But they don't have a gun for you. And the dudes that are trying to recruit you, oh, they got 6 bullets apiece, dude. Yeah, we're equipped. Or that other unit over there that has a bunch of machine guns, piles of ammo boxes, and yes, soldier, you want a rifle? We'll give you a rifle, and we'll give you plenty of ammo. And some hand grenades, too. Who are you going to join? Okay, so you get the point. I believe the Spanish Republic, by the time of its victory, had it won, would have been a Stalin puppet regime. I totally believe that. I have no doubts about that. And they would have tried to keep it as quiet as possible, but they would have done more murder, more camps for people than the nationalists ever did. Okay, I believe it would have been a horror show. I'm not saying the nationalists would have been a place, especially for the not right type people immediately following the Civil War. It's not so good. I had a reasonably good friend, a bit older than me, who lived in nationalist Spain in the later years, an American. He quite liked it. Quite liked Franco's Spain. And yeah, you can tell the guy's a bit conservative, but he quite liked living there. I'm not saying he wanted that for America, no, but yeah, no, it was good living there. He really liked it. And I talked to him a little bit about it, and sure, there was bad things that happened before, and sure, it was an authoritarian regime. Not a totalitarian one, an authoritarian one, but it was run quite well, and it was quite reasonable. And he was of Mexican-American heritage, though I would say he was highly European, but definitely with a Mexican and American background. So Spanish was, I wouldn't say his native language, or his first, I wouldn't say his first language was, but it was a language that he grew up with in America. He was born in America and whatnot, but it was a language that he grew up with as well. So it was no hindrance. I don't know about accents, whether the local Spanish would have seen him as a foreigner, but his Spanish was generally good enough to be, because Spanish of Spain, and there's different regions of different Spanish. I know many of you Europeans know this, but Americans might not, is much different than the Spanish spoken in Mexico. A cousin of mine, who is whiter than I am, learned to speak Spanish very well, and when she was working a bit younger for Enterprise rental cars, because she was working for a small office, normally the Enterprise rental car staff has to clean the cars out after every rental. And if it's dirty enough on the outside, wash the cars on their lots. Well, where she worked, it was too small of a staff. If I give too much details, you could point things, and I don't want to, and it doesn't even come close to doxing her, but I don't need to go down that road. It's unimportant. So that's why I'm not giving some of the details. But so she didn't, and to the point that she was often sort of in the sort of office alone, and it was sort of small specialized, but in part of major Southern California city area. So she would take the cars up to, and that was the situation, to a local car wash. And of course, everybody at the car wash spoke Spanish. So from day one of her showing up there, instead of speaking to them in English, she spoke to them in Spanish. Well, she had traveled in Spain, never lived there, but had traveled in Spain and learned Spanish in California, but learned it well. They were like, well, where are you from? And she wouldn't tell them where she was from, and she just spoke to them in Spanish. They eventually figured out that she was from Argentina, because that was sort of her accent, and that she was so ultimately white. I mean, whiter than white. And she is very white-skinned. So, definitely not a Mexican, mestizo, a mixed person. No tint of bronze in her skin, and she didn't, suntan much at all or anything like that, or want to. So she was very white, but she had that good accent, or that good of Spanish, not with this accent of Spain, they decided, but they decided it was the accent of Argentina. Whether they knew, I don't know whether they knew what the accent of Argentina was like or not, but that was their decision. So you can, so I understand that there's various accents, and between the different parts of Spain, he may have not seen a native, but he may have very well seen a, Spanish speaker from somewhere. And so I'm sort of saying that in that he wasn't just there in a sort of isolated English-speaking expatriate type community that didn't interact with the locals. So because whether it was under Franco or even nowadays, the expat communities are like I say, are a bit isolated from the locals, and even under, or maybe even more so under the old Franco regime, given leeways, meaning if they were to say bad things about the government, no one cares, they don't vote, they don't have any influence, and we want them to, retire and spend their money in Spain, and so they don't pose, as long as they weren't going to the local communist meeting and trying to overthrow the government, just because if they, criticize the Spanish government or something under Franco, they wouldn't be, questioned or locked up or anything like that. As long as they weren't doing, bad things. And I know that to be the case under, at least with some of the stuff from my readings of, for expats living in sort of expat communities. But he was living a bit more amongst the people and speaking to the people in Spanish, so to get their feel of what was going on. And he, like I say, quite liked a nationalist. So, but like I say, I think it would have been a horror show under what the Republicans would have been by their victory. And so that tells me that with the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, where you have the French communists, which by the time 1940 rolls around is entirely in the Stalinist camp. All Trotskyites have been removed. You can see some of the actions that the Stalinists did, and if you watch the series Babylon Berlin, it's only in German, though I watched the subtitled version. I understand they're making series 3 now. They may have renewed it for series 4. I am looking forward to that. But what the Stalinists were doing to the Trotskyite types, and so we see the Communist Party, although not allowed to openly exist in France, and the idea that they didn't have their communist newspapers, they weren't, allowed to rally and do things like that openly. They weren't suppressed under the Nazis because they had given their support to the German occupation very blatantly. The communists did. That only changes the day after the invasion of the Soviet Union starts. The communists start moving into resistance cells. They were already set up as a cellular structure, whether to resist against the French government, the Germans, or whoever that pre-existed, so they move into active resistance. I think that would have been the case with Spain as well. Whether they would have immediately gone to war, I don't know, because I think the Stalinists would have had such a grip that if the leaders refused to declare war, they would have been assassinated. That is my estimation of the situation. Leader level number 2, I don't know whether they would have had they just killed the cabinet. Okay, now everybody out, go kill the local commissar, because they've just killed the cabinet. That might have happened, because of various things might have happened. But I do think they would have put in enough loyalists with the idea that even if the Spanish Republic doesn't look like it can stand up against German aggression, Stalin and the rest of the communists would just want a second front immediately, no matter the cost. And even if they lose, it would be that much more territory to occupy, and that they would turn into guerrilla operations. And of course, Churchill would have immediately sent down an expeditionary force, like they did into Greece. It might not be very much, which would be welcomed by the Republicans, and try to send in as much arms and other supplies as they could. I think that's what would have happened. And I think it was Jeff who was posting that he thinks the series we're doomed because Germany's doomed because of that's going to happen. I just don't know. I know I've talked about this longer than I should, but I don't know that is what is going to be the thing that happens, whether that they are going to go to war or not over the Soviet invasion. They may. Very well may. Okay, twin engine fighter prototype. Okay, which basically just allows us to make twin engine fighter planes, which is good. But I think we're going to shift this. Okay, we've got that. I got that over to here. Don't know if we're gonna build any, but we might. Okay, and rebels everywhere. Let's kill them off. They need to go there. Should have been there occupying in the first place. Okay, well, they're actually militia, but okay, you support the attack. Let's see if the Navy can handle that. You guys get to, oh, you're already defending there. Okay. It is good that you're defending. Oh, no. And then come back. And up here, and then come back. I think that might be the way I want to handle these outbreaks in future, just sort of have them at reasonably good locations to hopefully deal with any initial, you know, uprisings and whatnot, and then have them pre-set up to go back home to, you know, a good starting point. But we shall see. Oh, we still have more production. Okay, which is good. This means I gotta make some decisions here as to what to produce. Well, we could even do more. Get those produced. Just keeping in mind what I was saying in previous episode about needing enough convoys to keep supplies and whatnot and resources flowing. Don't know if you'll be needed, but you can head that way for now. Okay, range finding equipment. Yes, how far away is the enemy we're shooting at? That is an important thing. Yeah. Okay, engineer unit training. And bridging first. I want to get across them rivers faster and fight better across them. We're still at 99 all across here, and we're continuing to produce underproduced requirements. Okay. Yeah. Actually, let's stop this. You come down to there. You stay there, just so you're not fighting across the river is what I want to do. Because we can see here that it's seeming to do all right with even weaker force. Well, we're going to look into what to build in between episodes. So I want to thank you all for watching. I do appreciate that. And of course, if you would like the videos, and if you haven't already and you've made it this far, please subscribe to the channel. And of course, I absolutely love hearing from you. Love to hear your thoughts about Spain. Had the Republicans won, as well as other things. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.